Today on today's video, we're going to continue our alternate future of North America series. And well, let's get into it with Florida, the Floridian Empire, which they have formed, declaring war on Texas. You may wonder why they would do that, considering they were aligning themselves close to Texas throughout this series. Well, they became imperialist, and they want to form an empire. And they, well, the orange man in charge of the Floridian Empire also likes expansion, because he's making the Floridian Empire, which basically looks like the Confederate States at this point. Not really. And while the invasion begins with Texas shocked and surprised, the nation that helped them fight off Mexico in the second part of this series is now their enemy, as they quickly move in towards Houston and Austin and Dallas and cities. They quickly move their front, and they start an encirclement of Houston. They also manage to start encircling Austin, the capital, and they start advancing towards Dallas. And they make a landing in the southern coast. But at this point, a counteroffensive begins, with Texas pushing them back in the south. And well, slowly they push this front back. And slowly indeed. And well, they manage to break Austin out of encirclement and push them all the way back to the border, basically. In some parts, they managed to get to the border, of them being pushed back from Houston. But with another Floridian offensive launched. This one is a bit slower. And then it continues with a slow pace, before it starts speeding up as it takes Houston. And they start going down the coast. Quickly, they launch a spearhead, cutting this area off, with Florida having launched another offensive. This area collapses, and well, the Floridian Empire advances here. They start their encirclement of Austin again. They manage to take the city, then they encircle Dallas. With a bit of a longer battle, they eventually manage to take it. And well, Texas isn't doing great. For one, they had recently lost their war in the last episode against the Californian Empire. Yes, the empire that was expanding with them, helping them and stuff, turned on them. They get turned on again, but this time by a long-term ally, one of the nations they have a lot with. But don't worry, they're a bit similar, but there's a few differences. But Texas is just upset that they were betrayed twice, as the front starts moving and desertion becomes really high, and loss of trust in their government, as their government told them two nations were friendly that turned on them. Yes, it didn't end well. And while they start getting pushed back into the south, well, they'll probably, well, I think we can just call this nation Hurricane Land, because every part of us is in hurricane zones. And well, they cut across here. And well, Texas finally falls. And in the peace treaty, complete annexation into the Floridian Empire. And well, now we go to Northern California. Well, Northern Californian Empire. Which means, yeah. With the California Empire declaring war on Idaho. Yes, Idaho. They already lost land earlier before California annexed Oregon and Washington, to prevent them from trying any ways of getting lands. And well, yes. And well, annexation. And now we go to Montana. No, let's go to Colorado. In Colorado, they end up having a communist rebellion. And well, quickly it turns into a civil war, with the two northern areas of resistance collapsing. But the southern group in the southern part of Colorado continues. And while Colorado doesn't have fun, with a communist rebellion breaking out, and it's already taken over most of the country, as well as the attempts to launch a communist insurrection in Montana fails to even begin. And well, then they advance over here. At this point, Colorado ends up surrendering to the communist revolt. And now we have communist Colorado, which, due to being communist, ends up a part of the Communist League. And well, New York decides to invade Virginia, but without the help of its allies, because they know they can take it on, as they've already are starting to form a communist states of America kind of thing. You got three kind of things basically trying to form it back up. And indirectly as it may seem. But this is going to be important as the world heads towards the Great American War. And yes, Virginia has fallen, meaning most of the East Coast is now New York. And well, I'm sure New York doesn't mind being a super strong nation. And now we annex them. Not like that. That doesn't work. And well, Florida decides to invade Oklahoma. With Oklahoma not to say too surprised. But with Oklahoma City, followed by Tulsa falling, ends up leading to their surrender. And well, with that, Oklahoma is annexed into Florida. And now there's no denying how big they are. We got three nations heading towards unification of this place, if you think of it. We got California, Florida, and Virginia. And well, Minnesota decides to annex the Dakotas, the Dakota republics. And well, they advance rapidly in. They rapidly invade. Well, they take it over. And well, now we got Greater Minnesota. And well, that's pretty much all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, but not until you subscribe. Why should you subscribe? So we can get to 3,500 subscribers by August 31st. Bye, guys.